Hi, Alex.
Hi, Donna. Good to see you.
Nice to see you as well.
How are you?
I'm doing great. How about yourself?
I'm great. Thank you so much for agreeing to do this. It's
Oh,
good to
yeah,
see
I
you.
love it. I'm so excited about it. I just finished off Elvis week, at Graceland. So this is a good time to, tell the tales.
I was gonna ask you about that Elvis Week at Graceland. That's fantastic. It's on my bucket list. I
Is
ha
it?
Yes, I haven't been to Graceland yet, but I'm talking to someone who hasn't only been there last week, but they lived at Graceland, and I was gonna ask you about that.
Yeah.
Uh, so first of all, thank you for doing this.
Oh,
Uh,
it's my
we'll broadcast this on Sunday. Hopefully, try to catch the month of August because it's
yeah,
Elvis month, and then
right.
also put some parts of it on YouTube for people who want to see
Oh,
the video.
terrific. That sounds good. I like it.
So tell me a bit about your time at Graceland because
Okay.
I mean, this is again, this is on my bucket list, and I know you lived at Graceland. You also worked at Graceland, and for
Yeah.
me, Graceland is like this place that's shrouded in a lot of legend and mystery.
Yes. Well, it's a very magical place, and you should definitely put it on your bucket list because it
Yeah,
is wonderful. And to go through Graceland and everything, and just tour everything and see what Elvis accomplished in such a such a short lifetime. It's just amazing. And you can in Graceland, you can absolutely feel his spirit there. It's a wonderful place to be. It is absolutely magical. So you should definitely come. But from the time I was 10 years old, I spent all my summers at Graceland because our grandmother Dodger lived there. And 2 weeks before school was out, I would, come to Graceland, and then a week before school started back, I would go back to Missouri, which is where I lived at the time. And I did that from the age of 10 to about 15, 16 years old. And then when Elvis bought the Circle G Ranch in Walls, Mississippi in 1967, then my family moved on to the ranch. My dad started working with him. He was, taking care of over all the grounds at the Circle G and at Graceland. And so we lived there on the ranch from 1967 to 1969, when he decided to sell it. So when he decided to sell it, he moved us onto the grounds of Graceland. So we lived back behind the house at Graceland there. So I was there every single day, um, with my grandmother and so forth, and all the rest of the family. And a lot of times Elvis was home, and a lot of times he'd either be on tour or doing movies or whatever. But yeah, but then he would always come home, and we'd all have family time together, and which was magical as well. It was wonderful. And, I was there for the vigil. I walked up with the fans, and, it's kind of a two-edged sword for me because, I obviously want to pay my love and respects to Elvis and my family that are buried there. But it's also very painful in a way because I remember, walking on that hill and walking in the house, and all the family was there, and so much love, so much laughter, so much fun. And now it's different when you go up, but I'm surrounded by all the fans who love and adore him, and with so much love that they give, it kind of lifts me out of that pain a little bit, and lifts me up, and so I can be there with them, and feel the love that they have for Elvis, and it by extension to me and the rest of the family.
I think it's fantastic how, if you think of all the musical genres and all the trends that came and went over the last 48 years,
Yes.
that Elvis's reputation hasn't changed. If anything, he has grown. And
Yeah.
I think it's fantastic what you're doing because you're traveling around the world, you're
Yes.
writing books, you
Yeah.
are going to these fan events, and
Mhm.
you are talking about your wonderful family and keeping Elvis's memory alive. Also, if I'm not mistaken, I think you'll be in Austria in winter. So
Yes.
if
Yeah.
anybody's listening, it's pretty close to Romania. If you want to go, I think Glenn Harding will be there as well.
Yes,
Elvis.
Garden, and several members like there's Donna Rhodes Morris. She sang with Elvis, on backup on several albums. Ginger Holiday will be there. She also sang backup with Elvis on several of his albums. And so, and then Glenn D. And then, you get to see and speak to all those people and how it was like to work with Elvis and what it was like when they first met him and so forth. And then you get to hear memories of me and, the family and learn about who Elvis was, but also you learn about the family that helped shape him to be the man that he was. And the same people that raised him raised me. So, you get all the family memories and the love and laughter. And, I so adore coming to Europe and performing there and everything, because the fans there are just magnificent. They're amazing. And, I Elvis always wanted to go to Europe, and perform there, and unfortunately, passed away before he was able to. So I feel like that I'm kind of going and standing in his stead, and then bringing not only Elvis with me, but other members of the family. Uh, so it's a heartwarming thing for me. I love it, and the fans seem to enjoy it. So it's just a wonderful time. So if anybody's close to Austria, please come out and see us, because it will be amazing. We'll have great music and wonderful memories.
What what do you wish people knew more about the Presley family that you think they don't know enough?
I wish they knew what a wonderful. I mean, I know they know what a wonderful man he was, and what a fabulous. I mean, he's the greatest entertainer of all time. There'll never be another Elvis, and never was before. So everybody knows the icon, the superstar. But what I would like people to realize is what a warm and loving and caring and generous man he was. He was funny. He was caring. He cared so much about all of us. And, he wanted people to realize that he had a strong faith in God, strong belief in God, and he always stood up for that. And that came from the background of growing up in church and singing in church with his mom and dad and my mom and other members of the family. So I want them to know all about that and what he was like as a little boy. My mom was 9 years old when Elvis was born, and they lived next door to each other. So, to tell the stories about what it was like when he was a baby, when he was 3 years old, he was sitting on the porch with my mom, and he said, Aunt Nash, one of these days, I'm going to buy my mama and daddy a big house and lots of cars. And that all came true. So it was a little bit of a prophet even at 3 years old. But, I want people to realize that was who he actually really was. You hear the generosity of buying houses and jewelry and cars and things like that for people he didn't even know. But, it was so much more than that. He really cared about people. He wanted to bless them in the way that God had blessed him. He wanted to be there for them and help them. And he believed in truth. He believed in loyalty, love, kindness, and respect for everybody. And he always showed that to everyone. And I think that if all of us could take a page out of Elvis's book and do that, then the whole world would be a much better place for all of us.
You mentioned your mom and everybody in the Presley family, and correct me if I'm wrong, you were 8 years old when Gladys passed away?
Yes, I was. Yeah.
And
I have vague memories of Aunt Delta. Aunt Gladys. But like I said, she passed away when I was 8, and I remember how sad that Elvis was, and even after that. And my mom and my dad went to the funeral. I didn't go because I was in school, but it was a very sad affair. And Elvis was sitting out on the porch with my mom, and he said, Aunt Nash, you see all these beautiful flowers, and I love it. And I love that the fans love me and my mom and my dad so much that they send these to me. But he said, I would rather have one flower while I live than to have a million after I'm gone. And my mom actually wrote a book called One Flower While I Live, because she wanted to tell everybody what he was like, as a little boy growing up, and the things that they did, and the things that they played, together, having fun. And they had a close relationship up until up until he passed. My mom was an Assembly of God minister, and so he wanted to help her with her ministry, and he bought 4 acres of ground in Walls, Mississippi. He helped her obtain a metal building for it. He called her over one night, and he said, Aunt Nash, I want to give you a car for you. She said, honey, you gave me a car last night. He said, no, that was a family car, which was a Mark IV Lincoln. He said, that's for the family. So I want you to have a car just for you to do your ministry in, because I think it's important. So they went to downtown Memphis, and they went to a Pontiac place, and he takes her out and says, okay, pick a car. And she said, no, honey, if you want me to have this car, you're going to pick it out. So he takes her by the hand, and they walk around, through the car lot, and he sees this Grand Prix Pontiac. It's sky blue with white leather interior and a white Landau top. And he opens the door, and he helps my mom into it, and he kneels down beside her, and he says a prayer. And when he stood up, he said, this is the one. And so, he bought the car for her, and then, one of the boys drove it home for her. And then, a little while later, he calls her, come over, says, come over. So she goes in there, and he says, okay, Aunt Nash, do you have a piano for your church? And she said, no, honey, not yet. So he said, okay, come with me. So he takes her into the music room there at Graceland. And there is sitting this gold leaf grand piano. I'm sure you all heard about it. But anyway, sitting there, and it was an anniversary present from Priscilla, I think on their first anniversary. But she had a gold leaf, and it was like a 9-foot grand. And so he says, I want you to have this for your church. So the next day, and my dad was kind of a jack of all trades, and he was always trying to save money, save Elvis money whenever he could. So he thought, well, why pay somebody to move the piano when I can move it? So he wraps this gold piano in moving blankets, and he puts it on the bucket of a tractor. And here he goes down Graceland's Hill, out onto Elvis Presley Boulevard, down all the way down Highway 51 to Mississippi. And he pulls up on the hill where the little church was, and he's sitting there looking at the church, and he's looking at the piano. And my mom says, well, Earl, can't you take the wall down and then, put it back up after you get the piano in it? And he said, yes, I could do that, but then you wouldn't have any place to sit because the piano was massive and the church was small. So he takes it back down the hill, back down 51 and up on the hill of Graceland. And so my mom goes over that night, and she says, Elvis, he said, yes, Aunt Nash. And she said, that gold piano you gave me? He said, yes. And she said, do you mind if I take it and trade it for a smaller piano because it won't fit in the church? And he said, Aunt Nash, I gave that to you. You can burn it if you want to. Whatever you do with it is fine. So she takes it to, she goes to one of the music stores here in Memphis, and she trades it straight across the board for a spinet piano. Now, my mother was like Elvis. Money meant nothing to her. She just thought this was free to me, so I just want to trade it for this spinet piano. So there's this gold leaf, 9-foot grand piano owned by Elvis, and she trades it for a spinet. Well, I later learned that it was sold to a private collector for $2 million.
Wow. Yeah.
So anyway, then it sat in the Country Music Hall of Fame for many years with this story running with it. But it just shows you the heart of Elvis and what he was like. And it's just amazing. He was just an amazing, caring, loving man. And that's what I want people to remember, is who he was as a person. And I think if you asked Elvis today, if you could ask him and say, what do you want to be remembered for? I think he would say, that through my music or through being, just a nice person, if I could touch somebody's life, if I could make somebody's life easier or better in some way, then that's what I'd want to be remembered for.
That is
So,
fantastic. Yeah. He did touch many lives. I mean, he touched mine. I'm a musician now, and the first CD that I ever listened to was an Elvis Greatest Hits compilation.
uh-huh.
I didn't even know he had passed back then. I just thought he was an actual singer. Again, talking about how present he is in pop culture, it sounded
Yeah, yeah,
so fresh, you know.
I know.
And I would go to school and hum "Mary's the name of his latest flame," and my friends were like, "Well, what are you talking about? What's that?" I mean, this was Romania in 2001.
Right.
Such a different culture, and yet look at how much Elvis has changed cultures around the world. And you're speaking about the Presley family. It makes me think of how close you all seem to have been to one another,
Yes,
and and Elvis's devotion to his mother is legendary, and
yes.
and how close they were to each other. I know you were very young and you didn't have time to properly meet Gladys, but what do you think was so special between Elvis and Gladys? And do you think that she just couldn't really handle the idea of Elvis being taken away from her by fame? Do you think she took it badly back in those days?
Yeah, I think it affected her, of course. I mean, you got to remember here, he was born in 1935, and she lost, Jesse Guerin, who was,
Yes.
passed away. And so, there's this, you've got these two babies, and one of them's gone. And I think she always had that fear of losing Elvis. So she was extremely protective of him. But, being Elvis and being the kind of person that he was, he understood that. He understood her fear. He understood why she was so protective. And, he let her be that way. But at the same time, he would, still went out into the world and became this super icon, this superstar. But she would see him out there, and people ripping his clothes off, and things like, "Oh, they're going to kill my baby. They're going to kill my baby." And I understand that as a mother. I mean, my children are grown and have children of their own, and I still am extremely protective over them. And I have a very close. I have two sons. I have a very close relationship with both my sons, and so I understand it. It's a lot of it has to do with the South and growing up in the South, and people, families being close, and they grew up in during the Depression. Elvis did, and that close knit family, because you had to be, because you didn't have a lot of money or a lot of things, and so families stayed together and ate together, and they go out on the porch at night after dinner, and people would come over and be friends, and they'd sing and just talk to each other. So there was that closeness of family always, and it just continued on. And I mean, it was that way when I grew up too. Uh, family was just close, and you loved one another, you respected one another, and you cared about what the other person was doing. When I was graduating from high school, I was spending the night at Graceland one night, and Elvis walked in. Our grandmother had gone out to the kitchen. About this time, Elvis walks into the room. He walks over to me, and he pats me on the head. "Hey, Donnie," which is what he always called me, was Donnie. And he said, "How are you doing?" I said, "I'm fine." So he sits down in the floor in front of me. I'm in the chair. He sits on the floor, and he's talking to me. He wants to know, who I'm dating. I'm graduating from high school. What do I want to do with my life? And things like that. Just asking me questions, caring about what my life was like and what I was going to do and who I was involved with. Um, so that was just the kind of person that he was. But that was just the way we all grew up, as family and close family and caring about one another. And I told him, I said, he asked me, "So what do you want to do when you graduate?" And I said, "Well, to be honest, Elvis, I'm not really sure what I want to do." And he said, "Well, let me tell you this. You can be anything you want to be, and you can do anything you want to do if you'll remember these four things." I said, "Okay, what are they?" He said, "Number one, always have strong faith in God. Always have a strong faith in yourself. Be willing to work hard for whatever you want, and never let anyone tell you that you can't accomplish your dreams, because I'm living proof that you can." So I always held on to those values and those, that advice. And that was just the way he was, because he wanted to show you that, he was so generous, not just with money, but he was generous with his time. with his feelings and what, wanting to protect you and take care of you. So it was just, that was just who he was. And that was just the way we all grew up. It was just, that's all we knew. And, when I was growing up at Graceland and so forth, I mean, I knew who Elvis was. I knew he was a superstar, but I didn't look at him that way. Now, if I went to a concert, which I went to many, when I went to a concert, I would sit there and be as big a fan as anybody else because I just enjoyed the music and watching him, and it was just amazing. But I got to go back home to Graceland, with him. So that was very special. But it was just that was just who he was, and he knew also. I think that was another reason he all wanted all of his family around because he knew we loved him as Elvis. It didn't matter if he was Elvis Presley, the superstar, if he was Elvis, electrician. He knew we loved him no matter what, and we would always love him and always be there for him. And fame and fortune is a wonderful thing, but it can be a two-edged sword because then you never know if. And he told me this himself. He said, "I never know when I meet someone and they want to be a friend, or if it's a girl and I want to be my girlfriend. I never know, are you with me as a friend or a girlfriend because I'm Elvis or because I'm Elvis Presley?" So that's, that can be it can be a two-edged sword. But he handled it with grace and dignity and lots of love. But yeah, it bothered Aunt Gladys. I remember that, and I remember hearing stories and talking about with the family of how scared she would be that something would happen to Elvis because she'd already lost one child. She knew she couldn't have certainly couldn't have any more, and it was a frightening thing because when your child is out there in the world and you see somebody that might be hurting them, you want to protect them. And Uncle Vernon was the same way. I mean, he was always very protective. And Elvis, a lot's known about the fact that Elvis and his mom were very close, but he and his dad were extremely close as well.
Him and Vernon, yes. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You talk about faith in the
Mm-hmm.
Presley family, and I feel like it has played an important role in your life as well, I suppose.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I don't see how people walk this earth and go through the things that you have to go through sometimes because life can be very unkind, and bad things can happen. No matter how good a person you are, bad things can happen. So, if it wasn't for my faith in God and knowing that he's got me in his arms no matter what happens, I don't see how people make it walk through this life without him. I really don't.